bubbling pot of goodness, filled with your favorite ingredients, and a fixture this festive season.
I absolutely love Hotpot. It's a dish that, all of us gather around the table.
I love the soup, it's my favourite part. I also love that there's limitless options.
I just love being able to talk to people while cooking food.
I eat a lot of Hotpot during CNY.
I usually have around 8 to 10 hotpot meals during the CNY period.
Hotpot, the quintessential Lunar New Year dish. But the truth is, Singaporeans don't limit their hotpot intake to just the festive season. We really love our hotpot, which is why in the last few years we have seen many new hotpot restaurants like this one.
Today, there are more than 50 hotpot restaurants in Singapore. Many sprung up in the last few years, including the popular Haidilao hotpot chain, which has 20 branches in Singapore, making this the country with the highest number of Haidilao restaurants in Southeast Asia. But recently, I read this. A woman in China ate hotpot 5 times a month over a 9-year period. The result? She gained 13.5 kilograms.
Well, she's clearly in hot soup. But actually, eating hotpot about 5 times a month is not inconceivable. In this episode, I want to know how eating hotpot can lead to such a huge weight gain. Just how bad is hotpot? And is there any way to make it healthier?
Nutritionist Charlotte Chew is a hotpot lover, but she restricts herself to only having it once every 4 months.
What have you got here?
Here I have prepared 5 common off-the-shelf broth in the market. So here we have the mala hotpot soup. Here we have the collagen soup. And then tomato soup, clear chicken broth, and also the shrimp flavored soup. Now let's talk about the calorie first. Which one you think contributes the highest calories?
Okay, from the looks of it, I would say the one that has got the most amount of oil. Ew, look at this. Yeah. So I think the mala has the highest calories.
Yes, you are right. For mala, right, actually it will contribute to 165 kilocalories per serving. This is considered as one serving. Okay. And to burn that calorie off, we will need to run minimum 23 minutes. How about the least calories? Which one you think is correct?
So my guess is the clear chicken broth.
So typically, the manufacturers, they already skim off the fat. So that's why the fat content in this particular product is lower. And for this one, it only contributes to 50 kilocalories of calories. So to burn that off, we just need to run or jog 8 minutes only.
So mala is number 1 in calories. What's number 2?
So number 2 is the shrimp flavored soup.
I knew it. It looks suspicious.
Yeah, got a bit of oil on top, right? And it contributes to around 154 kilocalories. And to burn that off, you will need to jog 20 minutes.
Oh, it's a close second to the mala.
Yeah. So number 3 is the tomato soup. Then followed by the collagen. And then last is the chicken broth.
Not all broths are created equal.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So what exactly contributes to the calories?
So basically, it's all the ingredients that they have added in contributes to the calories. But in particular, for example, like those chili oil or chicken fat, pork lard, all these contribute to significant amount of the fats. And fats will contribute to calories. So apart from calories, right, the next one is the sodium content. So take this mala as an example. So actually amongst these 5 common broth, right, mala contributes to the highest amount of sodium. That is 2,400 milligram of sodium. And that is equivalent to 1 teaspoon of salt.
And that's what technically allowed for the entire day. So in this small tiny bowl of mala broth, I would already have exhausted my ration of sodium for the entire day.
Yes, correct. Okay,
Wow.
because it's so high in sodium. So coming in the close second is the shrimp flavored soup. So this one, it contains 1,600 milligram of sodium, which is equivalent to around like 0.7 teaspoon of salt. The soup with the least sodium content is the collagen broth, which the sodium content is near to 0.
Okay, it looks so rich. I imagine that there's loads of sodium in there. So I'm actually quite surprised. The other thing that I really want to know is the fat content. This one has loads of oil floating on it. The collagen looks like it's got lots of oil, and I'm surprised the tomato broth as well. Tell me about the fat content.
So for the fat content, right, as earlier you have guessed it correctly, that mala soup contains the highest amount of total fat. So for this one, it contains 16.4 gram of fat. It is equivalent to 1.25 tablespoon of oil.
Okay, so I want to guess which one has the least amount of fat, and I'm thinking that it is the chicken broth.
Yes, okay, because they already skim off the fat.
When I go to the supermarket, I can read the nutrition labels, but the problem is when I eat in the restaurant, there is no label to fall back on. And one must assume that they put a lot of stuff in there in order to make the broth very flavorful.
Yeah, so in general, the key learning point for this is those soup that contains oil. So for example, like this mala soup and also this shrimp flavored soup that it contains a lot of oil. These generally are considered as unhealthier as compared to the others. So in general, for those comparatively unhealthy food, usually we will recommend to reduce the frequency to like once a month or maybe even longer. Yeah.
At most, once a month for a hot pot meal laden in fat and oil. I can easily exceed my daily salt intake limit just by having one bowl of mala soup. And let's face it, we usually have more than a bowl of soup during a long hot pot session. But hot pot isn't just about the broth, right? It's also about what you put in it.
Some of the foods that I love to indulge in are my processed foods, meatballs, fish balls, and crab sticks.
My favorite ingredients in hot pot would be pork belly, luncheon meat, fish roll.
My favorite ingredients for hot pot are pork belly, enoki mushrooms, and Chinese cabbage.
What happens when we cook our favorite ingredients in broth laden with sodium, fat, and oil? I want to know how much more unhealthy do they become? I've gathered some of our favorite hot pot ingredients: pork belly, fish balls, luncheon meat, and crab sticks. These are ultra-processed foods and fatty foods high in saturated fat, calories, and sodium. Added to that, I've also picked out some healthier options like prawns, cabbage, spinach, corn, chicken breast, and tofu. The corn has been stripped of its cobs for the purpose of this experiment.
I'm going to be cooking all of these ingredients in a hot pot, and I've chosen the most commonly used broth, chicken stock. As a control, I will also be cooking the same ingredients in just plain water. Okay, done. Now I'm going to send all these samples to the laboratory to test for calorie, fat, and sodium levels. The results will be out in 2 weeks.
Since I'm going to have hot pot probably more than once a month during this festive season, I wonder if we can make our hot pot guilt-free?
So based on our results, you see that the largest increase in sodium when you cook in broth versus your water is basically your vegetables.
I'm devastated.
It's been 2 weeks, and the results of my test on ingredients simmered in hot pot broth are out. I had sent some hot pot ingredients which have been dipped in store-bought chicken broth to be tested for calorie content, fat, and sodium levels. Because I want to know how much more unhealthy our ingredients become after being cooked in hot pot broth. The results are out, and I've sent them to food scientist Professor Liu Mei Hui to help me break it down.
What do the results tell us?
Well, the overall total calories for this group of ingredients in broth is 1,067 calories.
Okay.
The same ingredients was also cooked in control, which is hot water, and the total calories was only 1,035 calories. So you see the difference in terms of calories is not that great. It's only about 40 calories in difference.
In other words, the chicken broth does not add to the calorie count of the hot pot meal by much. But
if you look at the amount of sodium that comes from all these ingredients that's cooked in your control, what you see basically is that the amount is only 2 grams of sodium in total. However, if you cooked all the same ingredients in chicken broth, what you get is that the total amount of sodium is about 3.5 grams. That is already above the recommended 2 grams of sodium of daily intake.
Which means that when all this food was cooked in broth, it increased the sodium level by 75%.
Yes. What's more alarming is that if you choose healthy options such as your cabbage, your spinach, and even your corn, if you cook these vegetables into chicken broth, they will also absorb some of the sodium, and that actually increases the overall sodium levels of these vegetables by 200% or even more.
Okay, 200%.
Yeah.
Wow. What types of food tend to absorb the sodium more?
So based on our results, you see that the largest increase in sodium when you cook in broth versus your water is basically your vegetables, which is basically your cabbage, corn, and also spinach.
I'm devastated. Because sometimes I think I'm very virtuous, I have steamboat and I eat a whole big fat bowl of vegetables.
Correct. So when people eat your vegetables, it absorbs the broth, and the broth itself also contains sodium. And that sodium gets transferred to your vegetables which you consume. And that adds up to your overall sodium intake in a hidden manner.
So out of the ingredients here, which is the one that absorbed the least sodium?
The one that absorbs the least sodium is your lean chicken breast.
What about the fat content?
Of all the ingredients that's cooked in water, the total fat content is about 44 grams. In comparison, when we cooked all this in chicken broth, the total fat content is about 47 grams. So the difference is only about 3 grams. That's not so significant. However, having an intake of 47 grams of fat in one meal is already close to the daily limit of about 50 grams of fat per day.
And what is the most important takeaway for us hot pot lovers?
I think that overeating is the main reason that contributes to weight gain in hot pot. Because if you look at the overall ingredients that is being consumed in one hot pot session, it might likely to be over 1,000 calories, and that is already half or even more than that of a person's daily calorie intake limit.
So, I always thought that having lots of vegetables at a hot pot meal can make it healthier. Looks like that's not the case. Which means I need to find another healthy hot pot hack.
She's Louise Yuan, a food startup owner and a hot pot lover. Louise was born and raised in Taiwan, where hot pot makes up a large part of their diet. She has it once a month, and I want to know what her secret is.
What are you preparing today?
I'm creating a healthy hot pot broth.
Tell me what makes it so healthy.
You can see these are whole ingredients, right? It's nothing processed. So what we have here is the chicken bones. This is the foundation of the bone broth itself. With that, we add veggies.
Why do you use chicken bones?
Because this is white meat, relatively compared to pork as a red meat, it's a healthier version.
Unlike store-bought chicken broth, Louise's homemade version is free from additives and preservatives.
It's just a handful of wholesome ingredients I put in the stock. But if I go to the supermarket, a lot of time if you look at these hot pot broth, there are 20, 30 ingredients inside, including seasoning, flavorings, additives, preservatives. Sometimes you don't even know what are the ingredients names or what they are. So the stock will take 3 hours in very low simmer.
It smells amazing right now.
Of course, a hot pot meal is not complete without the sauce to dip your ingredients in. But like the broth, hot pot dipping sauces are also often laden in salt, fat, and even sugar. The worst culprits, chili oil and peanut sauce. Which is why Louise is foregoing these ingredients for something lighter. made simply with light soy sauce, sesame oil, garlic, coriander, and chili. Louise's homemade broth sure looks appetizing. But the big question, will it pass the taste test? Only one way to find out.
Is this the kind of soup stock that you would choose when you eat outside?
And I'll give you tips on how to avoid getting sick from that hot pot meal. Chef Louis Yuan has just shown me how to make healthier hot pot broth and dips, which is less in sodium, additives, and fat.
Done! And now let's put the broth and the sauces to the test. Okay guys, come on in, take your seats. Welcome. Hi.
I've invited our hot pot lovers for the meal.
Okay, welcome. I have got a hot pot spread for you, so I'd like you to dig in and tell me if you find anything different about this. Shall we?
So what is the base of Chinese traditional soup?
How did you find the broth? Sean?
I think it was really good. I think at the start, it's very light, but yet very fragrant.
I had a taste of the broth before the ingredients, and I really like it because you can actually taste the chicken, and it's not overpowering, not too salty.
Is this the kind of soup stock that you would choose when you eat outside?
Not really. I normally go for like tomato soup or like a collagen soup because I like soups that are very rich.
Will this make you want to switch to a healthier broth like this one for your hot pot?
I definitely can't turn a whole new leaf towards the healthier side, but I would definitely consider this for my next steamboat.
I would only have it when I have friends over, but if I'm outside in a restaurant, I probably would not order this. So we're outside, right? And then like you're already paying for a broth. So why not just choose a broth that is like worth it?
If you were to pick the healthiest chicken broth at a steamboat restaurant, what will your friends say?
I don't think they would go for it. It would take some convincing to get them to pick the plain chicken stock over like the mala.
So if you had to choose one sauce, would it be the healthier one or the not so healthy one?
This has been one of my favorite ones. I actually loved it because it reminded me of the sauce that my mother usually makes.
I think I would pick the chili. Yeah, because I feel like when I eat meat, I would want the meat like to be like more flavorful. No, but I actually don't mind this sauce. It's very like simple.
It's also very similar to the sauce I typically make for myself, except that I put a lot more coriander leaves, a lot more aromatics like chopped garlic, but it's very nice.
Okay, so I'm going to review the results of a test that we did earlier on. The shocker is when you put the vegetables that's cooked in the broth, the sodium content of the vegetables can go up by as much as 200%. How will that change the way you eat your hot pot from now on?
That's shocking because the fact that I would think that I'm eating something healthy like a lot of vegetables, but in fact it's absorbing up all the fats and the sodium that's in the stock base.
I didn't expect like that every single ingredient that we actually put inside the soup will actually absorb that much.
I found it really quite shocking as well. It's definitely taught me to think twice about my broth options now.
I would choose like a soup that's not so oily.
Honestly, I'm still gonna go for my mala soups. I'll just eat hot pot a bit less, I think. Yeah.
Now that we know how to avoid those extra calories, fat and sodium when we eat hot pot, there is one last thing to investigate. Amid the camaraderie over a sumptuous hot pot meal, I wonder if you can get sick from it. With cooked and raw foods sitting next to each other and cooked side by side in the broth, shared utensils, it seems like a bacteria fest. How much of a risk is it enjoying a communal hot pot meal? Dr. Desmond Y has seen many food poisoning cases. He's going to tell me if hot pot can be a cause.
Hi, Dr. Wei. Take
Hi,
a seat.
Dinah. Oh, thank you. Wow, so much food.
Yes, yes.
I have to confess that many years ago, I had food poisoning from eating a hot pot meal. So I want to know, what is the risk of food contamination when it comes to hot pot?
Actually, we have to treat raw food, especially raw meat and raw seafood, as dirty. There are a lot of bacteria in them. Common mistake that people do is that, for example, they use one pair of chopsticks. I'm glad that you have two pairs of chopsticks, this for the cooked food and this for the raw food. We should not cross. So now I'm taking the raw meat into the pot. Now, I am aware that this pair of chopsticks actually had touched some raw stuff, therefore it may have bacteria. It would be a mistake if I pick up the cooked meat and put it in my mouth, because this pair of chopsticks may have the bacteria. So what I should have done is leave the raw chopstick here, wait for the food to cook. It should be minimum 75 degrees, 1 minute. I will then pick it up with a cooked chopstick or a utensil.
I do have a question though. I mean, if these chopsticks are for raw food, and if the soup is boiling, can't I just dip it in there and let the heat kill the pathogens and the bacteria?
Yeah, you just leave it there for maybe about 45 seconds. That should kill most of the bacteria. That should be okay. Two pairs of chopsticks safer.
That's right.
Another common mistake will be, Diana, you just put in 2 pieces of meat, they're about to be cooked, you're about to pick it up with a good chopstick. And I'm being greedy, I say, hey, let me put some more raw stuff inside. And you pick up the meat, okay?
Which is right next to your raw food.
Correct. So we don't know how hot the temperature may be, but because this piece of meat is a raw piece of meat, it may contain bacteria. And when you just pick it up, before 45 seconds to a minute, then you may pick up some bacteria. So we should say, hey, let's cook everything together. Let's put everything inside and chit-chat for 1 minute, and let's pick up with food and eat together. That would be safer.
Wow, but I've not been in a situation where people are so highly regulated in a steamboat situation. Everybody is throwing in things all the time.
And you also have a raw corner, cooked corner, okay? And between the raw and the cooked food, try to have some space. Yeah, maybe this side is the cooked food, this side is the raw food. That should be quite safe.
Essentially, make sure your raw meats are a safe distance away from cooked food. I've picked up quite a few healthy and safe hot pot hacks. So this Lunar New Year, I'm going to be the hot pot police. Make sure that my family and friends observe good steamboat habits. Might make the experience a little less convivial, but hey, at least no one would get sick, right? As for the broth, I've decided that I will make my own vegetable broth.